Everyone, welcome back. So I'm Hafiz, an English teacher from HZad Education, and today I'm going to continue our discussion from the previous video that talks about IELTS Writing Task 1 specifically for the bar chart. In the previous video, I've gone through comprehensively on the things that you do need to be fully aware of in regards to what you should expect, the template of the answer, the things that you have to look for, the things that you should do, the things that you should not do, etc. So those should give you an accurate expectation of what you need to do in terms of preparation, in terms of pacing, and basically how you practice as well. So today I'm basically going to continue and show you guys how that all of those things that I discussed previously can be implemented. And to do that, I'm going to show you a sample answer that's scored between a band 8 or a 9. This is the question that we discussed last time. This is the bar chart. It talks about developing countries, industrialized countries in 1980 and 1990, separated or categorized into three different charts consisting of years of schooling, scientists and technicians per 1,000 people, and spending on research and development. Sorry. Now we're going to jump in immediately into the sample answer and dissect each paragraph and see what this person has successfully done. Okay, so here we go. Now, of course, I've also mentioned this before. A lot of the times you would use four paragraphs for IELTS Writing Task 1. But if you feel like the need to add one more paragraph, you may. The fifth paragraph will basically be similar to the second paragraph, different in context still. It's just the same overall structure. You will talk about an overview of the data that is given to you, right? But if you have already exceeded 150 with after four paragraphs, that should be more than enough. The most important thing that you have to make sure is that you have successfully highlighted all the important data, because a lot of the times that's where you can easily slip up. You can easily identify the incorrect data, or you can easily identify data that might not be as significant as you think. We also discuss the criteria of the so-called main highlights, right? So that's something that you need to really have a complete understanding of. If you are still not sure, feel free to review the previous video or leave a comment below to ask any questions. Right, so let's start dissecting the sample answer here. So we have the first paragraph, right? And just to remind everybody as well that the first paragraph is usually only a paraphrase of the introduction of the chart. So you will always have some sort of introduction to the chart like this. So let's take a look at the answer right now. The main point is that your first paragraph should contain the exact same information but paraphrase. So that means you cannot use the same word, nor can you use the same exact structure without changing at least 70% of the vocabulary, right? So there's always two ways to do that, and I'm gonna make a comment here, right? Either change 70% of the vocab or change half of the vocab and change the structure. That's usually one way you can easily tell whether you have successfully paraphrased it. So let's take a look at what this person has written. You can basically tell that all the information mentioned in the introduction have been mentioned, right? All the information. So that includes the different charts as well. So I know what you're saying, like, okay, this person kind of uh, specify. Okay, this person said average years of schooling, numbers of scientists and technicians, and research and development spending in developing and developed countries. Yes, that's true, right? Because that's basically what this sentence is also saying. It's just that they did not specify it into the different categories, right? But when this sentence say The chart below shows the level of participation in education and science, right? They basically mean all these three things. So instead of copying exactly by saying education and science, this person just went on and mentioned the labels, right? So that's one way of paraphrasing it. And you can do that as well with any other bar charts, right? In addition to that, right, look at this. The person also mentioned developing and developed countries instead of developing and industrialized countries, right? So yes, that person did not change developing countries. And a lot of times, I guarantee you, you will also come across that situation where it might be quite difficult to change certain words on the spot, right? Especially if you're not that knowledgeable in your terminologies, right? Not to say that you shouldn't try. It's just that it's okay. Sometimes you do get stuck in changing the terminologies. What you should never get stuck on is changing basic vocabulary or commonly used vocabulary. Here, the person just simply go developing and developed countries. So they just change the industrialized country because that's probably the only terminologies that that person is aware of, that he or she was capable of changing, and which is completely fine, right? And then at the end, the person ended with figures are given for 1980 and 1990. So instead of making it into just one sentence, this person went on and just made two sentences, which is completely fine. So far, the first paragraph looks good, right? Because the person has paraphrased literally more than half of the sentence introduction, and kind of also change the structure because the introduction sentence use one sentence, but this person has had two sentences, right? So structure change, vocabulary change. That means at the very least, lexical resources um, will score a high band, and also grammatical range and accuracy will also score a high band. Okay, so that's for the first paragraph. Now, the second paragraph, we start to talk about the overview of the chart. Now, the overview is basically just the biggest or the most obvious trend that you can see on the bar chart. And I've already mentioned it in the beginning of this video. You can clearly see that the industrialized countries is the most dominant, right, in all three charts. Whether it is in 1980 or 1990, you can immediately see that. So that's the most likely that's going to be mentioned here. So let's take a look and check. It's clear from the charts that the figures for developed countries are much higher, right? And take a look at the way that this person described it, that the figures, this is something that you should also practice, right? There are a lot of dictions for IELTS Writing Task 1 where you can immediately identify and memorize a lot of the synonyms of it. So like figures, data, numbers, increase, decrease, the highest, the lowest, fluctuations or fluctuating, like those are the set of words that you usually have a list. So this is very nice, by the way. It is clear from charts that the figures for developed countries are much higher than those for developing nation. That's the overview, right? As I mentioned before, that was something that we also immediately identify just by having a quick glimpse at the bar chart. That's always going to be second paragraph, right? Do not write anything that's trifle or anything that you might need to take a lot closer look at, right? One more thing that I have to point out before we continue with the second sentence: the person also started the sentence differently to the introduction. The introduction started with the three bar charts show, so that is active, right? And it started with the subject. But in the second paragraph, the person says, it is clear. And that's also an expression that has a lot of variation that you should also memorize, right? It is clear, it is obvious, it clearly shows that, etc. going on to the second sentence, the person uses the conjunction also. When you use conjunctions also and furthermore in addition, make sure that you're not repeating them. There are many conjunctions, so there is no reason, no excuse really for you to use the same one over and over again, especially if you are using the word and. The charts show an overall increase in participation in education and science from 1980 to 1990s. Now, this person identified actually two main trends, right? And they are slightly different. So, first one is that developed countries are much higher. The second one, overall increase in participation in education and science. So, only education and science. This person did not mention spending on research and development, right? So why did that person mention that? Well, obviously because that's also the dominant trend. The second most dominant trend is the consistent increase in two out of the three charts. So here there's overall increase. You can see that as well, right? For average years of schooling, both developing countries and industrialized countries both increase. This one as well, they both increase. So that's an overall trend as well. So that's something that you have to be able to identify in your in your planning. In your planning, that's something that needs to be done. And so that counts as an overview. And if we take a look at the sentence structure as well, the chart shows. So this person went back to an active sentence, right? So it doesn't continue the same pattern of using passive or starting with an expression, because that doesn't show a variety. One of the criteria of writing is showing a variety of grammar, of grammatical, yeah, of grammar structures, or sentence structure, basically. Okay, so the second paragraph also looks good. Now, should you mention, okay, but for spending on research and development, it actually went down? No, because that is not an overall trend. That's number one. And number two, you have to specify the number to kind of clearly show how it looks like. So that would not go in the second paragraph. Okay? So that's an overview. And so this person did that successfully, the overview. So make sure you do that. And one thing that you should notice as well, for the first and the second paragraph, this person used present tense, not past tense. Even though in even though in the second paragraph there are dates of it, 1980 to 1990, right? This is an overview, so it's factual. So the first two paragraphs are using used present tense. Okay. Now let's move on to the third paragraph. The third paragraph will start specifying numbers. So let's take a look how that looks like. So first is the tenses, of course. It's in past tense because now you're mentioning specific set points of the data which happened in a specific year. So people in developing nations, so this person used active sentence, which is fine because the previous one started passive, for an average of around 3 years. So there's usage of the word average, and there are other variation of this as well. You can say estimatedly, approximately, right, roughly. So those kind of vocabulary, please memorize them, right? Those will be used for IELTS writing as one. And then there's a slight increase. So this indicate just a bit of increase, and a lot of the times that's an expression you need to make as well. There are a lot of variation for that kind of expression as well in years of schooling from 1980 to 1990. On the other hand, this is a contradictory, transitional phrase. So on the other hand, however, but, right, etc. That's something that you also need to memorize because that shows comparison, right? When you, because one of the tasks in IELTS writing task one is make comparison where necessary. One of the ways to do that is to use the contradictory conjunctions. Okay? The figure for industrialized countries rose. So, like I mentioned, increase, decrease, those vocabulary with all of its synonyms. Please memorize them. Rose is a really good one. From nearly 9 years of schooling in 1980 to nearly 11 years in 1990. Now, the only problem I would just highlight, it's not a big problem, it's more like nitpicking, right? This person used nearly twice in the same sentence. I personally wouldn't recommend that, right? There's There's other words that you can use there. The figure for industrialized countries rose from about 9 years of schooling in 1980s to nearly 11 years in 1990. But even if that is the case, right? Look at the number of repetitions that happened there for nearly. It's literally just repeated once. That's it. That's usually the limit that you should do. Now, if you ask, like, okay, is that once per paragraph, once for the entire word? I would I would confidently say once for the entire essay. Once for the entire essay. So if you have already used nearly, try to use it only once more maximum. After that, try avoid using it. Now let's take a look at his second set of data from 1980 to 1990, and you can see here immediately the paragraph started differently, like from the other three, right? The number of scientists and technicians in industrialist countries almost doubled, good expression, to about 70 per 1,000 people. Now, usually when it comes to the units, there's very little that you can do to paraphrase it. So if you cannot paraphrase it, it's fine, right? The crucial part will be the structure. Make sure that you don't repeat the same pronoun. Make sure you don't repeat the same subject, right? Spending on research and development also saw rapid growth. That's a nice expression to indicate a very quick increase in these countries, reaching 350 billion in 1990. By contrast, ooh, look at that. That's a nice one, right? Similar to, on the other hand, by contrast, very good. Did not repeat the same transition, did he or she? The number of science workers in developing countries remained below. Another good word to remember. 20 per 1,000 people, and research spending fell. Ooh, that's a good word as well. A strong word to indicate a quick drop. Drop is a good word as well. From about 50 billion to only 25 billion. And you can see the variety there of different lexical, of different like words, vocabulary, and even grammar, right? Because like the last paragraph, you started with a time frame, and then the second sentence, spending on research and development, also so, right, starts with a gerund. Okay, start with basically the title of the of one of the chart data, right, which is the third one, and then the third sentence, by contrast, that's the contradictory sentence, right? So this person managed to show a variety of grammatical range, and definitely all the grammar are accurate. That's also very crucial. Please take a look at the data that this person has highlighted, right? The third paragraph focus simply on the increase, right? You can see here words used are rose, increase, right? For an average with only a slight increase. On the other hand, it rose from nearly 9 years of schooling to 1980 to nearly 11 years in 1990. So it's consistent. The main topic is consistent. It's focused on the trend that increase. That's it. It did not indicate what decreased. It did not indicate what remained stagnant. But if you take a look at the last paragraph, there is one anomaly that this person tried to describe at the bottom, right? It started off by describing the number of scientists and technicians in industrialized countries almost doubled to about 70 per. Now, quick question. Why do you think this person did not put the scientist and technician in the previous paragraph? Because that also is an increasing pattern, correct? So why did this person did actually combine that data with the research and development, when research and development actually has a decrease for the developing countries? One of the main reason is because the category is a lot closer to research and development, because this has something to do with scientists and technicians. The third paragraph only focused on schooling. See that? So the third paragraph focus on just about the schooling, average schooling years. The fourth paragraph focus on those science, research, and development, right? Because they go into one category if you think about it, right? One component. Now, is there is it will it be a mistake if you move the number of scientists and technicians to the third paragraph? No, it's not going to be a mistake. You can still do that, right? But it's more about whether you're aware that those two categories are actually a lot closer than if you compare scientists and technician to average years of schooling. Like schooling with scientists and technician, there's no link there. But scientists and technician with research, there's definitely a strong link there, right? So that's why this person's got an 8 at the very least, right? Every category that we discussed in previous video, lexical resource, task fulfillment, grammatical range and accuracy, cohesion, they're all here. It ticks all the boxes. And this is the standard of the answer that you should strive for if you want to reach the same band. So hopefully this video helped, guys. And if you have any question, please feel free to leave a comment below. And that's it. Everything that I explained here are also covered in all the courses that HZad Education provides. So please feel free to check out the link in the description below, right? And if you have any question, again, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe and like as well. So take care, and I'll see you in the next video.